Hello and welcome to Learning with Liebenhaut. I'm Matt Liebenhaut, and today we are answering the question, how do I speed up my Social Security disability claim? That's one of the more common questions that we get, and unfortunately there's a big backlog, and there has been for many years with the Social Security Administration in terms of processing applications and appeals for Social Security disability. On average, nationally right now, from the time you apply, if you have to go to a hearing in front of a judge, which means you have to appeal it a couple of times, but from the time you apply to the time you actually get a date in front of a judge, you're looking at somewhere between 24 and 30 months. That's right, almost 2.5 years on average from the time you apply to the time you actually get in front of a judge. And then there's usually going to be a few more months after that before you get any benefits if you're approved. So, of course, it's in your interest to do everything you can to try to speed up the process. Now, there are a couple of special programs that are available to expedite the process. And we will do separate Learning with Liebenhaut sessions on dire needs, compassionate allowance, the Terry program. There's several things there that can be done, but those are pretty narrow programs, and they really do not apply to the vast majority of people who are applying for Social Security disability. So what can you do? Well, first off, when you apply, if you're applying for Social Security disability benefits online, understand that you are going to receive an application summary in the mail. And at least where I practice in the Southeast, the biggest problem that I see people getting themselves into and slowing down their case is not signing and returning the application summary that comes to them in the mail after they complete their application online. So that's one of the few things that, at least in my geographical area, what I see is Social Security does not send that to your representative. It only goes to you as the claimant. So especially if you're represented, people think, well, I have a lawyer who's handling this. Well, that's actually the one thing, at least at that stage of the game, that is not sent to your lawyer. So it's imperative that you take a look out in the mail approximately 10 days after your application summary, after your application. You should be receiving that summary in the mail. You've got to sign it and send it back. If you don't, I've had people come into me and say, I applied a year ago and I just don't know what's going on. And then we look into it and the application never went anywhere because they never returned the application summary. So that's one, and that's a pretty easy thing to do. Number two, understand that usually it's going to be somewhere between 6 and 12 weeks before the Social Security field office that you went into to apply, or the Social Security office that you applied through online or on the telephone. It'll be about 6 to 12 weeks before they forward your case on to the DDS office in your particular state. And these are the people who are, prior to ever getting a hearing and being in front of a judge, this is the people who are kind of behind the scenes making the decision. You'll hear that an adjudicator has been assigned to your case. These people are from DDS. If you get to the point where you applied, it's been close to a couple of months, and you haven't started receiving letters in the mail, or at least gotten a phone call from DDS, from that adjudicator, that is a red flag. That's a sign that there's some sort of technical problem, and one way or another, the Social Security office has allowed your application to fall between the cracks. And you want to get on that immediately by telephone and in writing to get to the bottom. So there's already a couple of easy things you can do to make sure that your case is not slowed down. Now, of course, one of the best things you can do, assuming you don't qualify for one of those other programs I mentioned in the beginning, to speed up the process, is to get approved early on. Now, there's a lot of things. You won't talk to a Social Security lawyer or somebody who's been around for a while doing this work that hasn't seen incredibly sad stories of people for whom there is no reason they shouldn't have been approved at either one of the first two levels, the application level, or at least then the reconsideration level, which is the first appeal. I've seen just really incredible stories of people who come to us after having been denied a couple times, yet they spent almost half the year in the hospital when you put it all together. things that just don't make sense. And that doesn't mean that that's always the case. In fact, we get people approved at application or reconsideration quite often. You just got to know what to look for in terms of the administrative pitfalls that happen sometimes, where, like I said, a case will get caught in the crack somewhere and won't get pushed through, won't get processed. And then substantively, what can you do to give yourself the best chance of being approved at the application or reconsideration level? Well, that's to make sure that Social Security is aware of every medical record that is important. And so if you went to a doctor 3 or 4 years ago and got an x-ray done, and that's the last time you've had any film taken of your injury, if you don't necessarily say anything to Social Security about that, most of the time they're just going to go back 1 year prior to your alleged onset date, or prior to your application in some cases, to get those records. So make sure that you're letting them know, and if they aren't going to get the record, it's their burden at the first couple stages of the application and appeal process to get those records. If they're not going to get them, you do what you need to do to put those records in their hand. And the second thing substantively that you could do to help your case, it kind of goes along with that, is please tell your doctors about everything that you're going through. I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come to me with some sort of problem with their lower extremities, with their legs. Be it arthritis or neuropathy or some sort of vascular issue. And I'm talking to them and they talk about how they lose their balance, or how they fell, or they're not sure whether they fell or they tripped, but either way their leg gave way and they weren't able to hold themselves up any longer. And then I'll ask, well, did you call the doctor after that, or did you go to the doctor the next time you had an appointment and explain what happened? Did you set an appointment to go in and talk to them about it? And it's surprising how often the answer is, well, no, I actually didn't report that. Or, well, they know, we'll hear, well, my doctor knows about that. Well, your doctor might know about that because you mentioned it to him a year ago, but if it's something that's ongoing and you're not mentioning it to the doctor each time you go in, don't be surprised if there's no record of it. And of course, if there's no record of it, you know what Social Security is going to do. And so to get approved at an earlier stage in the game, you've got to make sure that the records actually reflect what you're going through. Now, it's a common problem that people don't have insurance, or they don't have the funds to get the health care they need. But at the very least, there's a health department, there's a free or low-cost clinic somewhere nearby. If it's an urgent situation, there's urgent care or emergency rooms. There are ways to make sure that when you've got a problem, you're getting it looked at by a medical professional. And then, of course, even if they can't give you the level of treatment that you need because financially you can't afford it, they're going to document it. They're going to document what you say. They're going to put their hands on your body in some way, depending on what the issue is, and do some sort of clinical exam there in the office or in the clinic and document that. Those types of things are not done near as much as they should be. And it's because people are used to, well, I don't feel like going to the doctor. They can't really do anything for me. I don't want to have to go to the emergency room and sit around for a few hours and they're just going to tell me they can't help me and there's not much they can do. If you're having a serious medical issue, get in and make sure you're telling somebody about it, because if you don't tell a doctor or some other medical provider, Social Security's not going to know about it. Last but not least, from a substantive perspective, what can you do to speed up the process and try to get approved earlier on? Get a medical opinion from one of your treaters. Social Security will have a doctor or a psychologist, if it's a mental health case, acting as a consultant, looking at your records and giving an opinion. Don't miss out on the opportunity to have the medical provider who created those records that Social Security's consultant is going to be looking at give their own opinion. And even if that doctor or medical provider isn't willing to complete a form that most of the time your attorney can create for you, depending on what your medical condition is, if they're not willing to write a letter, ask them in the office next time you visit. What do they think about your ability to work? Do they think that you're capable of working full time? after they, are familiar with your medical history and your situation. If they say that they're skeptical of that they've got some concerns about you going back to work, ask them if they'll please dictate that note into their record. And if you've got an opinion from one of your treaters, it makes it a lot more difficult for Social Security to just look the other way, so to speak, at an application or reconsideration level and deny your case. They've got to look at what that treating physician or other provider has indicated they believe will prevent you from working, and they've got to come up with some reason why that's not accurate. And if you don't get that opinion, all they have to do is just rely on their consultants, and you can bet they're really not going to question their consultants. And all too often their consultants are saying that folks are not disabled when they really are. So, talked about a couple of the technical, more administrative things you can do to just make sure things are processed as quickly as possible, and then we talked about a few substantive things that you can do to try to get approved earlier on. Those are the big things that come to mind for me when anybody asks me, what can I do to speed up my Social Security case? Again, there's some other programs that very few people will actually qualify for that will expedite your case. We'll talk about that another time. But if you'll follow those tips that I gave you today, you'll be in a much better position. So I hope that's helpful, educational for you. Obviously, you want to reach out to an attorney or representative if you're looking to move forward with your Social Security case and you're not sure about legally some of the things you should do. But we're always glad to answer questions here as part of Learning with Liebenhaut. Give us a call if we can help you out with any of your legal needs. And as always, when in doubt, call Liebenhaut.